Welcome to History Lost in Time, from one enthusiast to others. And welcome to the first episode dealing with aeronautics. In this episode I will create a short profile of a workhorse of the German Luftwaffe in World War II, the Close Combat Support Aircraft Henschel Hs 123. Why this topic today? So why the Henschel Hs 123? Why not one of the superstar aircraft like the Messerschmitt Me 262, or one of the aircraft that served during the entire war, like the Junkers Ju-88 or the Focke-Wulf 190? Well, fighters and bombers are the stars among aircraft. If you are an aviation enthusiast, those are usually the ones you start with. They have impressive flight characteristics and they have abilities that are unmatched. They are the scorers of their teams, the quarterbacks, those that draw attention from the cameras, with good reason, to be honest. But then there are also the workhorses, those that work in the background and get very little publicity. Their flight characteristics are less impressive, they look a bit outdated, but they do really hard, ungratifying work, and they do it really well. May I present the Close Support Aircraft. They may not be the stars among aircraft, but they make a hell of an impression upon ground troops. Political background and commentary. This episode does not have a political agenda. It's neither about anti-militarism nor about glorifying war or the Third Reich. I just want to introduce a not really well-known aircraft to other aviation enthusiasts. The sources. Wikipedia can be of great use for this topic, as this isn't a controversial topic. Additionally, I am using these German language books as sources. Manfred Griel, Typenkompass Henschel, Flugzeuge seit 1933, which basically means Type Compass Henschel, aircraft since 1933, published by the Motorbuchverlag Stuttgart 2011. This book was helping me verify the data from Wikipedia, as it is filled with facts and numbers and information about the development of the aircraft. A bit of first-hand experience I got from this book. Erhard Jähnert als Sturzkampfpilot an allen Fronten, mal oben, mal unten, Teil 1, 1935 bis 43. Which means as a dive bomber pilot on all fronts, sometimes up, sometimes down, Part 1, 1935-43, published by Flexig Verlag Würzburg 2010. Jähnert mostly flew the Junkers Ju-87, but for a while he was also flying the Henschel Hs 123. And a few additional bits and pieces I got from the last book. Caius Becker, Angriffshöhe 4000, ein Kriegstagebuch der deutschen Luftwaffe. Which means Attacking Height 4000, a war diary of the German Luftwaffe, published by Heine Verlag, München, 1974. The development history of the Henschel Hs 123 starts in 1934. At that time, the Treaty of Versailles was still in effect, so basically Germany was not allowed to develop or build combat aircraft. The Henschel Hs 123 began its career as a light dive bomber and had its first flight in 1935. When you look at it, it appears old and dated, even for the time. The 123 was a biplane with a non-retractable undercarriage, so she was a typical combat aircraft from the interwar period. Maybe still acceptable for the 1930s, but just barely. When you keep in mind that in 1935-36, the development of the Me-109, the Spitfire and the B-17 Flying Fortress started, you realize how fast aircraft development progressed at the time and how old the 123 actually looked. In the years 1936-37, about 250 aircraft were built and a few additional ones were manufactured from spares. In total, there weren't more than 265. The Luftwaffe quickly transitioned to the Junkers Ju-87 as its main dive bomber and turned the Henschel Hs 123 into a close support aircraft. Let's look at the technical data. According to the Type Compass, the Henschel Hs 123A1, which was basically the only real version that was built, had an empty weight of 1,550 kilos and a takeoff weight of 2,150 kilos. So basically just like a heavier medium-sized car. Its top speed was 341 kilometers per hour or 212 miles per hour. However, the cruising speed was obviously lower. Its range was 865 kilometers or 537 miles. She was armed with two MG-17 machine guns, caliber 7.92 mm. She could carry about 450 kilograms or 900 pounds of bombs. She was powered by a BMW 132 radial engine that produced 600 horsepower. This proved to be a blessing, as the engine turned out to be very robust and forgiving. It didn't care much about enemy fire or bad climate. Engine and airframe fit well together. Without any electronics or hydraulics on board, the airframe could be fixed with very simple methods, and just like the engine, didn't care much about enemy fire or bad climate. And because of its undercarriage, it could land on almost any improvised airstrip. The 123 first served during the Spanish Civil War. She was not very successful as a dive bomber, but did remarkably well as a close support aircraft. She was very accurate during strafing and bomb runs and tanked enemy fire quite well. The Spanish bought the 123s from the Condor Legion and kept them in their air force. 12 more were sold to China and served in the war against Japan. During World War II, the 123 accompanied the ground troops during all campaigns. Poland, France, the Balkans, the Soviet Union. The few 123s were always there and made quite the impression. While official announcements always talked about several close support squadrons, there was usually just one group. On page 21, Becker describes the first few days during the invasion of Poland. As a matter of fact, only this one group, second group of testing Squadron 2, was flying against Poland. Only these 36 biplanes of Major Spielvogel. But they flew like devils. For 10 days they accompanied the advance of the 16th Army Corps towards Warsaw and the Vistula River like shadows. They attacked wherever the tanks and motorized units faced heavy resistance. And during the large encirclement battles at Radom and the Bzura, they flew up to 10 missions a day. On the morning of September 1st, the leader of the close support aircraft, Richthofen, can only use this one group of his close support aircraft and 2 of 4 of his Stuka groups. The pilots used a trick to improve the effectiveness of their lightly armed 123s. Becker describes this trick on page 48. The pilots start their attack run. After 10 days of war experience, they know what the main weapon of their Henschel 123 biplane is. Not the two 50-kilogram bombs under the wings, not the 2 machine guns mounted above the engine, only the acoustical effect, the horrifying crackling of the propeller at a certain speed. One short glance at the instruments, at 1800 revolutions per minute the critical point is reached. An acoustical wave forms in front of the engine. The propeller suddenly sounds like heavy machine gun fire. That way, the battlefield aircraft thunder above the enemy at a height of just 30 feet and cause panic and chaos. People and horses flee, vehicles crash into each other, not a single column that isn't affected by this. And the pilots can't even dare to fire their guns. The machine guns fire through the propeller, so they destroy it at this number of revolutions. The group achieves impressive results with their old open cockpit single-seaters despite dropping only a small amount of bombs. Jannert describes this trick in his book on pages 21 and 22. During peace times, this trick was mainly used to prank people on the ground. A beautiful machine, optically and from its flying characteristics, and you could make a lot of noise with it, which was really great fun. Pushing the throttle beyond the limit got it an engine effectiveness of 110%. The nose slightly down so that the sound could escape easily, and then at low altitude, everyone jumped out of their beds. What great fun for us young guys, but only as long as you didn't get caught, because this wasn't exactly allowed. Now you might be tempted to laugh at the Poles for getting fooled by this trick, but consider the situation. Enemy close support aircraft are approaching and suddenly you hear the sound of heavy machine guns. So exactly what you are expecting. Naturally, everyone runs for cover. During the campaigns in Western Europe and the Balkans, the 123 served with similar effectiveness, however their numbers dwindled. There was no dedicated new close support aircraft, and the Junkers Ju-87 simply had a different mission profile. So the 123s were kept in service. During the winter of 1941-42, they endured the Russian winter and kept operating even from snowed-in airfields. According to the Type Compass, only 114 were still operational by summer of 1942. This number dropped quickly. By September 1943, only 13 were still left. The last were lost during spring 1944. In 1942, the Luftwaffe demanded more 123s, however their production facilities had already been destroyed. Henschel was working on a new dedicated close support aircraft, the Henschel Hs 129, which was introduced in 1942. However, this seems to be the normal fate of close support aircraft. The American A-1 Skyraider, a propeller aircraft which had its first flight in 1945, served during the entire Vietnam War from 1964 up to 1975, and the US Armed Forces also demanded more of it and got the exact same answer as the Luftwaffe. And the A-10 Thunderbolt II has to endure being questioned as well. Maybe some remember the Senate hearing where representatives of the US Air Force explained to a stunned Senator John McCain that they wanted to replace the A-10 with several other aircraft, including the B-1 bomber. The only country that seemed to have realized the true value of close support aircraft was the Soviet Union. The Ilyushin Il-2 Shturmovik has a legendary reputation, and Stalin himself said that it was as important to the Red Army as the air to breathe and the bread to eat. Finishing words. Close support aircraft are the workhorses of 20th century air forces. They operate away from the spotlights, and today there aren't that many of them left. Helicopters took over a few of their tasks during the closing decades of the 20th century, and now it seems that drones could do that as well. However, neither helicopters nor drones have the firepower or the weapons load of an aircraft like the A-10 Thunderbolt II or the Sukhoi Su-25. Until that kind of strength can be applied to the battlefield in another way, close support aircraft will continue to play a vital role, even if they get ignored sometimes. Thank you for your interest.